There we go. Hello, 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 everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Musings and Music Show. The musings part of it, of course. I'm glad to have you all here with me on another Saturday on Vosaworld Radio. And this is an important show. I keep saying that because all of the shows are important, but this one's really important. I haven't, I'm going to have as a guest today somebody I am just meeting, saying now for the very first time. And as the show goes on, you're going to find out exactly why she's here. But I'm going to have her introduce herself to you, first of all. So, who are our listeners and eventually our viewers are going to be listening to.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me today. My name is Bianca Ebako. I am born and raised in Minnesota. I know some of you that are down south are probably like, how do you live in Minnesota? Why do you live in Minnesota? And it's something that I feel like everyone from Minnesota asks themselves because it's so cold here.
It is.
Um, yeah, it
I've seen
always
people
is.
when I complain and they say, well, it's minus something degrees out here, and then you can't say anything else about after that.
Yep, exactly. Yep. I went to school here for high school, and then I went on to Iowa State and double majored in public relations and marketing with a minor in fashion design.
Excellent.
Halfway through college, I was kind of like, I don't really want to be in the Midwest anymore. So I packed up my suitcases and moved to New York City.
Oh,
I
is that
lived
where you're coming
there.
to us from right now?
What was that?
Is that where you're coming to us from right now from New York City?
No, I'm from Minnesota.
Oh,
I'm in
okay.
Minnesota right now.
Okay.
Yep. I lived there for about 6 months, absolutely loved it, and then, went back to Iowa State to finish up and then moved back to Minnesota.
I don't know when I see anybody who says I love New York. See, I love to see the postcards. I love
Yeah,
to go visit and go see Times Square and stuff, but I cannot imagine living there. It
mhm,
is so fast paced. I cannot even begin to imagine. As they call it, the city that never sleeps.
yes, and that is so true.
2 a.m. in the night, where people are just walking around, and
Yep,
since it's so late, it looks as if it's daylight.
mhm,
It's completely,
yeah,
yeah, amazing when I see anybody who says that they love New York. I say, well, to each his own, I guess.
yeah, yeah,
So yes, well, everybody has heard what you said there, talked about yourself. Um, but the reason you're on this show is very different from all of that you've said right there. So you're here because I got to actually your own dad told me about your story
mhm,
about the whole. I'll let you tell it yourself because there's no way I can tell it as well as you yourself who
mm.
lived it can. So what is this whole story about? What is it that makes you, all of what you said is already something that stands out already. Everybody's life is unique and stands out, but there's something specific about you, which is why when I talked to him and he told me a story, I said, I need to have her come on this show. So
Yeah.
what's that? You go ahead and tell us.
Yeah, so after, living my glamorous, expensive life in New York, I, went back to Iowa and I was in class. It was my senior year of college, and I was in class, and I thought I had pneumonia. This was around January of 2017,
Mm-hmm.
which was common. I mean, we're in the Midwest, it's cold, flu season. So after class, I went to urgent care, and they said that you actually have um, fluid built up in your lungs. So they gave me an antibiotic, which I took for 7 days. And after I took the antibiotic, I was actually feeling worse than when I had started taking the antibiotic. So I ended up somehow miraculously driving myself to the ER, and they admitted me, ran some tests. And ironically, on Valentine's Day of 2017, I was diagnosed with congestive heart failure. Now, this
This is
is
at what age?
at the time I was 22.
You know, because those are the things we hear and we see in a movie, some pa, as we call it, some old man holding onto his heart. Oh my dear, my goodness, that kind of a thing. Some way older person, not someone who is in college.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, and
go on.
this was something that took not only me but my parents were surprised. I had never had signs of heart failure. I was active all my life. I was a dancer in high school, was active in college as well. And when they told me that I had congestive heart failure, my ejection fraction, for those of you that aren't in the medical field, that's kind of like your percentage of how much your heart is pumping, was at 30%.
Oh no.
So a perfect heart would be 60%, and only half of my heart was functioning properly. And so at that point, I was put on congestive heart failure medications. And then over the course of 6 months, I was hospitalized 9 times. And in August of 2017, that's when they were like, you know what? We've exhausted all options, and now you need a heart transplant.
Wow.
So after finding out that news, my parents, I think it was about 2 or 3 days later, they picked up their stuff and came to Iowa and moved me out of my apartment at the time. And I came home and I started all of the doctor's appointments to get on the transplant list. Initially, my goal was to be outpatient, so I was healthy enough to be living at home, but unhealthy enough to the point where I needed a heart transplant. And then 10 days after being home, I actually went to the ER because I was just really weak, fatigued. I had a lot of swelling in my legs, my abdomen. And I thought that I was just going to be in the ER for, that duration of the day or maybe overnight. And they ended up admitting me at that point, my ejection fraction, so my heart function was actually at 12%. So I was admitted to the ICU.
You've gone from 30, which was already bad and scary,
Mm-hmm.
to 13?
12%.
12%.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they admitted me into the intensive care unit, and I stayed there for about a month. And I was on the heart transplant list as status 1A. So that's essentially, I could no longer live at home without like sustaining my life. I had to be on different medications. I had to have IV medications.
And definitely have to be monitored. Somebody who knows what they're doing needs to be watching you and seeing what it is that's happening.
Yeah.
And you say you didn't have any symptoms before. It's just like up. Even in hindsight, when you look back, you don't say, "Oh, I used to climb the stairs and be out of breath. Oh, I used to do."
Yeah. No, I didn't have any of that up until when I found out I had heart failure.
Right.
And then it was kind of like downhill from there.
From then.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. That is a scary thing to hear, because the rest of us are going to say, "Oh, tell us." So I can say, okay, now I feel a little itch in my ear. That's it. Now I feel a little pain in my toe. That could be it. But there's nothing.
Yeah.
So is that typical though? Or is it that you in particular did not have any symptoms? Do other people have symptoms or telltale signs?
Yeah. I think it's case by case. For me, I didn't have any symptoms. I was always active. I've always had a pretty slim stature. I know people, and just my experience, after getting a heart transplant, that do have symptoms or are born with congenital defects, or have other pre-existing conditions which lead to heart failure. So they already know that they are managing their heart failure, and if it progresses, they will need a transplant. So they have a little bit more of, I guess I like to say, time and preparation
to process the whole thing.
Right.
Because exactly. It may be coming down the line for you. It was like pam, pam, boom.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm on a list. I am going to need to cut. I'm sitting here, even though I kind of knew a little bit of the story, my head is spinning still. Yeah. Like, how would I react to that? Like your parents, like you said, just came on down and said, wow.
Yeah, so I was at the Iowa Heart Center when I was at Iowa, and they transferred me to Abbott Northwestern here in Minnesota, because one of the doctors at the Iowa Heart Center actually did their residency with my primary cardiologist now here in Minnesota. Okay. So that kind of worked out in its own kind of quirky way. When I was planning on being outpatient, those 10 days that I was home, I did meet with the cardiologist here at the at Abbott Northwestern, and at that point I knew there was no longer like, I just need to take these medications in the morning, go about my day, take them at night. Like I was so severely sick that my entire life was around me having heart failure. And he told me, you know, if we're not aggressive about this and about getting you on the transplant list, I don't think you'll see 23, the age 23.
Sobering.
So
I'm sitting here at 58. If somebody tells me I'm not going to see 59, I'm going to be saying, oh my, oh dear, oh dear. Can you imagine telling a 22-year-old they're not going to see 23 when they have all of their life ahead of them and all these dreams and plans? Like, what are you saying?
Yeah. So I was essentially, I was given 3 months to live if I wasn't
didn't get. So they put you on the list, and then what happens?
Yeah. So I was on the list, and I was in the hospital, and going from outpatient being on the list to being in the ICU is very different. They're a lot more aggressive about getting you on the list. So the first 3 days I was at the hospital I met with a bunch of different specialists, went over, you know, what life is like being on the list, what life is expected to be like after getting a transplant. They took like 18 big vials of blood. They test you for everything. Because in hindsight, if you think about it, you're getting someone else's organ, right? So they need to know everything and anything about your body. I mean, they'll know how many times you've been exposed to chicken pox, how many times you've, you know, had any illness, essentially. If you have any existing illnesses, that blood test will eventually see it all. I did the blood test.
It's not just for most people who are listening, and I'm sure they know, but it's not just, oh, I got a new heart, just like any heart. And then end of story. The day you're given the heart, go on home. There's rejection of an organ that is not yours, that you're not born with. Already our own organs that were born with act funny, like yours did. Now you get somebody else's and you put it in there, and it's not just like I don't know, an electrician putting two wires together, electricity, bingo. You just go. It's not simple. It's not that simple.
So the testing is very rigorous, and then they gave me the option after going through all the testing and, you know, having insurance approved and all of that and signing consent forms. They asked me if I wanted to know if I had a match. So being on the transplant list and being in the ICU specifically, you do have the option, or at least I was given the option, to know if there was a possible organ for me. Now, if there was a possible organ, doesn't necessarily mean that my medical team will accept that organ, and there's a list of reasons why they might not accept it.
I was going to ask, why not? It's hard. Give it to me real quick.
Exactly, right? You would think like, oh, that's my blood type. It's a good fit. It goes into age, it goes into size, it goes, you know, so at the time I was 22 and I had, before getting my heart, so the heart I had was actually the 4th offer that was given. And it was really a really good organ, but I had 3 other offers and they just rejected them because they either had issues with it, or the location where the heart was, where the patient was too far from where I was here in Minneapolis, or the age of the heart. So, you know, if I'm 22 and I'm getting an organ from a 65-year-old, that's not going to last me that long. So they have to
go through all of this. This is not the kind of thing you do 5 of them in your lifetime. Do one heart transplant, do the next heart transplant. After no, you get something, and that's supposed to be kind of it, and we manage that. So you know, I'm really thinking about all of this now in concrete terms, because I'm looking at a real person, not something I read in a magazine or saw on the news. Right. And now all of this, I'm processing it too along with you, which is why I didn't want to talk to you before this. I wanted to just talk now and just learn all of this stuff, like what you're saying. It's not, there's more to it than we would normally think.
Yeah, exactly.
This was the 4th offer.
Yeah, so it was 2 days after I was officially listed, when I was in the ICU, that I got my first offer. And they said, you know, hey, we have an organ, we're not going to accept it. And then they would go over the reasons why they weren't going to accept it.
Now it makes more sense what you were saying. You opted to be told if there's an off. I'm like, what does that really mean? You know, I'm only getting it now, exactly what you meant by you wanted to be informed. I'm like, why would you want to be informed? It's because they would tell you and then tell you why not.
Yeah,
Next, tell you
exactly.
it comes up. No, it can. I think I wouldn't have. I don't think I would have taken that option. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
And I took that out, and looking back now, I'm like, why did I want to know about hearts that I wouldn't take? But I'm sitting in the hospital and I can't do anything. So I rather, it made me feel like things were like in motion.
Progressing, something's being done.
Yeah, exactly. Versus just sitting there and just waiting.
I know.
Yeah. So I waited for 23 days is how long I waited, which felt like the longest 23 days of my entire life, but in hindsight was not that long. And the organ I have now.
The average weight is that what is an average weight? Somebody gets on the list, and the average wait time is I know it must vary, but
now with the connections I have and the people I've met and the medical team that I've worked with over the past X amount of years, it varies. I know people that have waited 4 days. I know people that have waited 6 years. So there really is no average timeline, unfortunately. It varies from person to person, what your condition is, your blood type, your age, location. Yeah, exactly. So the organ or the heart I got, I remember I was sitting in my room, and at this point my room had been completely decorated. I kind of moved into the hospital. So I had family friends come and we got Christmas lights and we hung them up, and I had posters, and I kind of made it like my own apartment, because I'm like, I could be here for another 2 weeks, or I could be here for another 6 months.
Right.
So I'm going to make the best of it, and I'm going to make it as comfortable as
Best
possible.
attitude ever. Best attitude ever, yeah.
So I was, I remember I just did my own little facial in my bathroom in my hospital room, and I was sitting on my bed and I was like, I'm gonna read a little bit, I'll watch some Netflix, and then I'll go to bed. And I remember a nurse came in and she took my water cup away, and I had this like water jug, and she's like, oh, I have to take this. And I was like, okay, that's weird. But prior to this, they had told me, before surgery, you can't have anything to eat or drink. The nurses will come in and take any beverages that you have, any food that you have. So I was like, okay, that's weird. I didn't really think anything of it because I was so honed in on like this routine I had created for myself while I was living in the hospital. And then about 5 minutes later, that same nurse came back with one of the cardiologists and another nurse. And I feel like my stomach dropped. It was like 11:30 at night. And when they came in, I'm like, this isn't like round hours. Like normally doctors do rounds in the morning. So I just looked at him and I like kind of already knew. And before they even said anything, I was just like, you're joking. Like this was just something that I had been preparing for and had been talked about. And I read a bunch of stuff about transplants, and he was like, we do have a heart for you. It's a really good heart. We do want to accept it. Surgery is going to be scheduled for tomorrow morning. And I just like sat there and shocked.
It's like, right. Yeah. It's like, bam, like now.
Yeah. So I was just like, oh my God.
Netflix. So I'm going to get the heart.
Yeah.
Some of us are scared even of little cuts. They said it's a little bit of blood, but I'm going to get a heart.
Yeah. So I was like,
tomorrow morning.
I was like, you're kidding. And he was just like, soak it in, like relax.
Wrap your little brain around it as much as you can.
Yep, exactly. And I remember I called my mom, and of course it's late at night, so why else would I be calling her? And I was like, guess what? And she's like, you got a heart. And I was like, yeah, like surgery's in the morning. And my mom freaked out and like jumped out of bed, and she's like, I'm on my way to the hospital right now. And luckily this was before COVID, so we didn't have any restrictions or anything like that.
We thank God for all those little bits of mercies, because I can imagine going through the same thing during a COVID. All of it, all those Christmas lights and things, you may not have been having all of that stuff.
Exactly. Exactly. And then I remember I called my dad, and he was out with some friends at a family friend's house, and I was like, "You'll never believe this," and he was like, "What?" And when he said what, I think he knew what I was going to say, and I was like, "I got a heart."
Actually spell it out. Let me hear
Yeah,
it.
yeah, and I was like, "I got a heart." And he was like, "Oh my gosh," and, like, he came to the hospital, and my parents came to the hospital. I don't even remember who got there first. I just remember after that, they started giving me, anti-rejection medication. So being that I have or was going to get someone else's organ, I had to essentially trick my immune system to think that this new organ I was going to get in X amount of hours is still my organ. So
Mhm.
they started me on some anti-rejection medication. I got some medication through my IV. At this point, it's, like 1 o'clock in the morning. My parents are there. I'm like, surgery was scheduled for, I believe, like 9 o'clock in the morning. So I was like, okay, sleep is no longer a thing. We're not sleeping tonight. I was so anxious. And prior to me getting a transplant, the only thing I had was my wisdom teeth pulled. So like this was like the biggest surgery. Going from getting your wisdom teeth pulled to, a new organ is like 1 to 100. So
Not a
you know,
thousand
I
or
was
a
yeah, I
million.
was freaking out. Nurses were in and out throughout the whole entire time, and
Even though that's what you're in the hospital for and waiting and hoping for,
uh
nothing is actually happening.
yeah,
It's a different, it will be different.
yeah, exactly. So they just came in and out, and they gave me medications, and my parents were there, and then early that morning, I believe it was 3 family friends came to see me in the hospital, and I was so anxious. And then I met my surgeon, he came in, I met the anesthesiologist, they put another IV in, and, they did the whole prep where they have to, like, wash you down and all of that. And I remember, like, at that point, like, it was about an hour prior to going into surgery, I was like, "Okay," or about an hour and a half, I was, like, actually getting anxious. So they gave me some medication to calm down,
Calm
and
you down, yeah.
and I'm like, I'm gonna be asleep for 4 to 5 hours. I've never been put asleep for that long. I've never had surgery. I don't know what to expect. And I'm really big into like,
Knowing,
yeah, I want
knowing,
to know all the details.
right.
So they calmed me down, and when they were ready, they came and got me. And I remember my parents gave me a hug, and I was so like such in a daze. I was just like, see you later. And then I went into the OR, and I remember the last thing I said was, "You guys have a lot of machines." When I went into the OR, and then I woke up after that. I just felt like a
Right.
really, really nice long nap.
And so you wake up and they tell you that are they okay, when do you really you wake up, are you like fully conscious or still in kind of a daze?
Yeah,
How soon did you know, okay, it's been done and it went well? When do they tell you
yeah.
that?
So I woke up, and I remember there was no lights on in my room. The only
Mhm.
lights were on were the machines.
All right.
Um, that were essentially just helping me. I had a breathing tube in, I had a catheter in because you obviously can't get up and use the restroom.
Mhm.
I had 2 chest tubes put in
Wow.
to help with any drainage. I had a big bandage on my chest. I had a bunch of heating blankets because, ironically, which I didn't know, after anesthesia like that, typically your blood pressure or your body temperature goes down. So they keep you real warm. And I just remember like opening my eyes, and the first thing I thought of was, what day is it? I had no
Right.
idea what day it was. It
Mhm.
looked like it was nighttime. So I
Mhm.
opened my eyes, and I'm like, whoa.
Of course, there's no lights in the
Yeah,
room
there's
for
no
you to
lights. They
think
have
like
it
it's
very,
nighttime.
very quiet. I'm in my own corner of the ICU. And I was just like, I kind of like opened my eyes, like looking around, like, what day is it? And then I realized I had a breathing tube in. So like my hands automatically just went to my mouth. Like I think it was just like a automatic reaction
The
to like pull
reflex,
this
yeah.
thing out of my mouth. And there was a nurse in my room, and she was like, no, like we have to keep that in, like just try to go back to sleep. And then they gave me some more pain medication. I went back to sleep for a little bit, and I woke back up, and there were 2 nurses in my room, and they were like, breathe in, breathe out. And then they put a drape over my chest and they pulled out the chest tube, or excuse me, the breathing tube. And I just remember like coughing, obviously, because this tube was all the way down my throat.
Like
And
gagging, yeah.
yeah, and I just like was coughing, and I feel like it almost was like a blackout. Like I almost forgot like why I was there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, but at this point I wasn't in any pain, which was
Uh-huh.
really nice. So I was
I'm
so
sure they took care of that because I
the
mean,
yeah, the amount
you
of
get a cut and you're I mean a cut like downstairs there, a little thing, a toothpick, even you're
yep,
feeling pain, even a shot from
mhm,
vaccine, feeling pain, and then you go get a knife right through you,
mhm,
and then they let you feel that pain. You
yeah,
know, I'm sure they had to have, or
oh
somebody
yeah,
should have been sued if they did not take care of that.
yeah. I was highly sedated.
I can imagine.
And I woke up and I automatically was like looking for my phone. And I think this is also like the world we live in. We're so connected
I
to
was
our
just gonna
phone.
say, yeah, I would do the same.
Yeah, I'm
I
like
get up just
my
to go to.
phone. I'm like, I want to know what time it is. I don't know what day it is. Like
You want to,
where
you want to
where
plug back into life. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. So I had to use my room phone, and I called my mom, and she answered, like kind of confused because she didn't have this phone number saved. And I was like, before even saying hi to my mom, I was like, "Where's my phone?" And she
Oh,
was like, "Oh, you're up." And I was like,
wow.
"Yeah, where's my phone and my iPad?"
I would be saying I have my daughter back.
Yeah, exactly. She's like, "Oh,
She's back.
you're up."
She's good. She's good.
Yeah, so
Doing
she
the normal things that you'd expect her to do. Yep.
yeah. And because they were with me the night before, the entire time we didn't sleep, during surgery, after my surgeon came out and said it went well, my
Mhm.
parents went home to at least get a nap in and just kind
And,
of digest everything. And
right.
I was like, "Yeah, I'm up. Can you bring my phone and my iPad?" So my parents came to the hospital, and I got on my phone and I took a Snapchat and like sent it to my friends, like, like I made it through, and that was that.
And okay, so when is it that you start to feel that maybe I have a new lease on life? When can you say you realize that okay, things are different. I'm not feeling this and I'm not feeling that anymore. Because I'm thinking at this point, you're heavily sedated. So you could think, okay, I'm sedated. So I don't know whether there's any, I don't know for real
Yeah.
that this is working. So
Yeah.
when was it about that you think you were saying to yourself, wow, this is
Yeah.
real?
Yeah. So for heart transplants, it takes about 9 to 12 months to fully heal.
Mhm,
Not only from the incision, but just feeling overall better. Um,
mhm.
which at first I felt like sounded like a really long time. But now thinking about it, I'm like, this is a new organ. It's never been in my body. It kind of has to get in its own groove of things. So I would say like about 7 months after my transplant was when I was like, wow, I'm no longer tired. I don't feel
Yeah.
fatigued going up and down the stairs. I'm not sleeping all day. I don't have any swelling or anything like that. So it took quite some time. Lots of physical therapy. I lost a lot of muscle mass just being in the hospital prior to me getting a transplant. And then even after transplant, right away, the same day, or I think it's about like 12 hours after surgery, they have you up and moving, and you have to sit up and sit in the chair. And, because not only they don't want you to waste more muscle mass, but they want you to start using that new organ. Like they want me to
Correct.
be a little bit active. So,
Correct.
yeah.
Let it start to work.
Yep.
I'm thinking about it now, like in terms of a car, an
Mhm.
engine. You put a new part in there. If it's just going to sit and just
Yep.
wonder what it's doing, it needs to start to work. Let's see
Yep.
whether everything is flowing like it should.
Yep.
Even though you should not shock it like bam, but
Mhm.
you should still start doing a few things. Give it a chance to.
Yep.
I'm listening to all of this and going, thank you, Lord, for science.
I know.
Thank you for the advances that we have made in
Mhm.
the world of science, because you know it. If it had been back where we come from, I don't think I'd be looking at you.
No. Yeah.
I just might not be looking at you right now. And so we thank God for the
Mhm.
advances in science, where they've studied all of this stuff, that they take those doctors, God bless them, take all the time, look at all the details and try to make sure that you're giving the care that you got to look at the pretty little girl sitting right there. Well, little.
Yeah,
What else we call little, but
yep.
hey, but that's really, really amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Because nobody, if they put you in a room of, I don't know, how many, and they said, pick who you think has gone through this story you just told, would never pick you.
Yeah.
Would so never go anywhere near you because you just look like, you see, so that reminds us that we go around the place, we see people on the bus, we see them on the trains, we see them in the airports and everything, and you have no clue what their story is.
Yep.
Were you ever told so what was the age of this heart was, what age was it? Or
Yeah.
is it?
They don't tell you any information.
They don't
So
tell you that, they don't tell you that much. Okay,
yeah.
so they only told you, okay, when they were disqualifying them, did they say, they told you why? In that case, they would mention maybe the age of the heart. But then when they accepted, the one that they accepted, they didn't tell you.
Yeah. So even the ones that they didn't accept, they would just say,
It wasn't a good,
it's someone much older, or
right.
they would say things of like the person had, for example, like the person was a heavy user in the past.
Right.
Or
Right.
they used IV drugs, or
Right.
they were a smoker for a couple years, so we don't want to accept that. The
Mhm,
one I got, they just said it was a very, very young heart,
mhm,
and it was a good heart.
mhm.
And I remember when I woke up, one of the things I thought of, I just thought it was a girl, and I thought that she was 7. That's just always what I don't
And
know. I just felt that.
this is just you feeling that.
Yeah.
Nobody,
Mhm.
wow.
Mhm.
This is amazing. I just like, this is being recorded. I don't
Mhm.
I can't just keep quiet for long enough to just say, huh? And just look and just stare. Because I
Mhm.
have to, the show has to keep going. I have to keep talking. And I was going to go, wow, that is uncanny.
Yeah. So,
Oh,
and people always think or will ask me, like, did you have any like out of body experiences during
right.
surgery, or like after surgery? Did you like know things you didn't know before? And I didn't have any of those experiences. The only thing I thought of was the age of my heart, or the person's heart that I got, and then that this person was a girl. And then I had this crazy obsession with orange juice and hard-boiled eggs. Now I've had it before, like I've liked those things before,
But
but after surgery, it was like I could
I'm
not get
upset.
enough of it, and I don't know where it came from. Maybe my donor
Right.
liked those things, but
Right.
those are the only things that were kind of like, "Hmm, that's different."
Yes, this
Yeah.
is intriguing. This
Mm,
is really something. I'm sitting here and even tearing up just listening to that because I don't know, and a heart of all things, because okay, kidneys,
yeah.
lungs. So
Mhm.
you know how we think about a heart. Somebody's heart is their heart and soul. We put those two things together. So you
Mhm.
think about how it might have changed the person. So you don't feel different, but for those things that you mentioned, those cravings, or well,
Yeah.
you pretty much are the same person. Nothing really has changed.
Yeah, nothing big happened.
But did it ever occur to you to worry about, in case it did, when you were waiting, that what if I go get a heart and now all of a sudden this, well, you said though that the doctors said not a good option because the person was a heavy user, so they've already
Mhm.
at least kind of screened those things. But I'm wondering, so now let's come to the donor part of things. You are, of course, you received your recipient. I don't know how much about the donor thing,
Mhm.
the criteria, because I'm going, what do they screen for? You see, before they even, I know we are supposed to carry, if you're an organ donor, you carry the card that says you're one. But I'm wondering what the doctors screen for. Do they want to know awkward things like, well, I'm not say awkward, but little things like, was this person an athlete? What faith did they practice? Like, what those little things? I'm just
Yeah.
asking now out of curiosity.
Yeah, no, they keep it very, very strict to the medical side of things.
Mhm.
So they don't I don't want to say they don't care about race, because, being a Black woman, there are different things in
That's kind
medicine
of where I was heading. Mhm.
yeah, that affect us, that don't affect, people of Indian descent. But they keep it very, is this person a user? Are they a
Right. They do
drink?
the
What's their
science part of
age?
it,
Yeah.
not the social. Like
Mhm.
to say, okay, I don't know how to put it. This person living under a bridge,
Yep.
as
Right.
opposed
Yeah.
to where they are an upskill, the CEO of a company.
Yeah.
So, and then, okay, next question, because I was asking them as I think them.
Mhm.
Do you at any point, which will be kind of strange, bizarre, or even almost silly, do you, the person who's going to receive the organ, start to say things like, are you allowed, or do they entertain you saying things like, I don't want this kind of heart, not to do with age, I don't want the heart of a person who has been a Satan worshiper. That's
Yeah.
what they did. Do they let you say those kinds of things or no?
That's a good question. I've never had anyone ask me that. I would assume that they're open to all of your suggestions, but they
Right.
would bring it back to the medical side of things. Like, if this is a good heart and this person was a liar, are you going to not take this organ because this person
Was a
lied
sociopath.
on their taxes versus it being
Can
a
I
good
just be
heart?
alive?
You have to
Yes.
kind of weigh out. I personally never, I don't want to say I didn't care, but that's not something that I like put into perspective while I was
I
waiting
know.
for a heart. I just
Yeah.
wanted a heart that was functional, that was going to last me longer than my original heart.
Mhm.
Um, and those were honestly the only two things that I really considered.
Right. So I guess this is the time for us to talk about it. We where we come from, we this is still not, I think the closest thing I got to a person that had some heart issues was when somebody who had the pacemaker thing, and we
Mhm.
were trying to be careful not to scream and shout next by them and make them go, shock them. That's
Yeah.
as much as it. So now, is there anything, do the doctors recommend that you not do this or not do that or not eat this or not eat that? How is it?
Yeah. So the two things I cannot have are pomegranate and grapefruit. And
Wow.
that is actually for any transplant patient. And it's because it's something to do with the chemicals and the enzymes in those two fruits that
Mhm.
affect the anti-rejection medication you take. So the anti-rejection medication essentially tricks your immune system into thinking that this new organ is yours.
Mhm.
So there's like a threshold that they want it to be in. So it suppresses your immune system enough for your
Mhm.
immune system to think that the organ is yours, but it
Mhm.
doesn't completely diminish it because you still need an immune system if you get the
You
common
do.
cold or the flu
Correct.
or
Correct.
COVID.
Uh-huh.
So there's like a threshold that they keep it within. Now, if you eat pomegranate or grapefruit, the anti-rejection level increases, therefore your white blood cell count goes down, and therefore you're going against your immune system more than you should. So those are the only two things really. Other than that, I mean, just like any other person would go to the doctor, they just, you know,
Wow.
say
I,
be as healthy as you can, make the right decisions, make right choices.
that's just it. So I guess this is the thing, the people who talk about, because we tend to not be into we've heard all kinds of stories about organ donation, putting yourself on the organ donation list. Oh, they don't try to revive you when you get into anything because they want you to not, so they can harvest your organs and things like that. I am hoping that when we listen to, myself included, when we listen to stories like this, what you have to say, that will be less squeamish,
Mhm,
less reluctant to do this, because it's because of that you are here today.
mhm,
Somebody, they donated the same way we donate funds, money for some cause and things. You're not going to be here, but you have organs that can help somebody else stay
mhm.
here, be here, and function like you're functioning. We need to really stop, I guess, and consider that. What do you want to make the appeal your own self?
Yeah, so prior to me getting sick, I've always been an organ donor. For me, I feel like if I'm able to help someone else after my time here has ended,
Mhm.
why not? Um, Now I have gotten into conversations with other people within my circle that weren't organ donors and now are organ donors because they're affected,
Right.
personally. And I've also had conversations within my circle of people that just don't want to be organ donors because they believe that they don't want to live on through other people. And that for them, it's more of a spiritual thing. And
Right.
I honestly respect anyone's opinion, but I'm also more on pro donor because if this was your mom or dad or daughter or son or brother or sister, whatever the case, friend, coworker that you were close with,
Right.
and they needed an organ, would you think like, oh, I hope they don't get an organ because the person that they're getting an organ from is going to live on through them, or would you want them to get an organ? And you being a donor is giving that person an opportunity to live their life.
Right. Interesting how that is somebody's point of view. And as you say, we respect all the points of view. They're legitimate because that's what they really feel. Interesting how this is the same reason that somebody is giving, I don't want my person to live on through somebody else, is the reverse for many people who do buy into organ donation. They say, I feel like my person hasn't really gone, is still living somehow because they're living through somebody else. So it's kind of rare to hear that. I'm just listening to it now and going, oh, wow. Somebody doesn't, their own reason is, I don't want it. Whereas many of those who do say, I want to kind of feel like they're not really gone because their heart is with somebody else or that kind of a thing. But a very tricky and somewhat complex a thing. So I'm going to go ahead and say, so what advice would you, at this point of it, I don't even know that you can necessarily give anybody some advice about what to do or not do, because as you said, it just came right along. And you didn't see any symptoms. I was going to say, but what do people generally say? What do doctors generally say about for those for whom have what they're trying to eat right, I guess, exercise, that kind of a thing. Are there any, maybe now I know fatigue, even though your skin kind of came like bam on you, you started to feel like you really, like you said, you had like breathing trouble because you went to the ER and they told you had fluid. Yes. So I guess we all need to not just take our symptoms lightly. Find out, because now I'm sure anybody who has any trouble breathing and anything will just think COVID. That must be it.
Yeah, exactly.
And go do your ginger and and lemon, and that is not what it is. So you did the right thing to say, let me go to the urgent care, see what's going on, and from there, feeling worse, that thing about listening to your body, I guess.
Yeah, trust your gut. Like for me, the antibiotics, halfway through, I was like, these antibiotics aren't doing anything. Let me just take them for the 7 days. And I continued to take them and it just got worse. And I was like, this doesn't feel right. If anything, it should be getting better or staying the same, but it was getting worse. So, and that's when I was like, I need to do something. So I just say, trust your gut.
Right.
And also, remember that doctors are not God. I think a lot of people hold this idea in their head that if a doctor tells you something, that's what it is. And I'm not saying like, if your doctor is saying, you should probably not drink as much as you do, not to listen to them. But I'm also saying like, explore your options. If you're diagnosed with something, get a second opinion.
I was just that's why the second opinions are recommended.
Yeah, and ask questions too. Know that a doctor is only going to diagnose you based on what they know, based on what they've read, based on what they've studied. And they're not miracle workers as much as people think that they are. They're real people too. So ask questions if you're confused about something, or if you think it might be something else, ask them and ask them to explain it to you, or ask them to talk to their colleagues about it, or get a second opinion.
All of those, and I think about the fact that unfortunately there's a crop of doctors, especially in Africa, our own side of the world, who sometimes take offense to that. That's why some people just don't want to they are a little scared to ask because they take offense. And I'm hoping that that's, as time goes on, people are realizing, no, we're not trying to be, you're not questioning your intelligence or your degree, your competence. As Bianca just said, you're a human being, no matter, after everything. So there's certain things that you may not know. There's a chef who is awesome at cooking, but somebody can still tell him about a certain flavor, some essence, some ingredient that you can put in something that's going to just make your cake or your whatever it is be a little different. You could be a hairstylist. Have you considered that maybe if you did this kind of thing, applied heat this way on hair that is virgin hair versus processed hair? We're all here learning. We're all human beings at everything. Like you said, we're not God. So it's a good thing if we listen, if we are open. And even in the process of, sometimes I as a teacher, in the process of explaining something to a student, I've had like, oh, never thought about it this way. Oh, really? Look at that. This is even a simpler way to teach it. Sometimes I'm trying to find a word there and the student says that. I'm like, that is the best word for it. I'm like, hold on, let me write that down. When the next class comes in, I'm going to use that with them because it didn't occur to me that we could do. So we're just all really learning. You know what I'm going to do there? I had done a little bit of my homework, just put your name in on YouTube there, and out came this video. I want us to watch at least a little bit of it or a good part of it. Someone can actually even see your story and even know that it's out there, that they could see, that they could share or learn from. Let's see if I have it here. I had tried to cue it. I think this is it right here. I think this is it right here. Can you see the screen? All right, I'm going to hit the.
I was in class and I was like, oh my gosh, like, I feel like there's like fluid in my lungs. Like I can like hear it crackle when I breathe in and out. So I was like, well, I should really go to urgent care because like I've never had pneumonia, I've never been one to be sick.
Well, I think with Bianca's case, there's a lot of unique and special elements. When I was ready to see her, I looked at her blood work, I looked at her EKG, and knew that it wasn't going to be a simple case, that there was definitely something more going on here. You know, I walked in the room and saw a typical Iowa State college girl, kind of in bed, not in the typical hospital gown, on her phone with friends, and realized that there was something serious going on with her heart. But this was somebody who certainly was not expecting it, as I wasn't expecting to walk in to see a young 20-something-year-old with pretty severe heart disease.
At one point she called, she said, I have been diagnosed with congestive heart failure. It was really devastating because we had just lost the elder sister 3 years ago. And now our sister is coming with congestive heart failure. That is not a good diagnosis for a little kid.
Her cardiologist finally told her that, Bianca, I'm not going to keep this away from you. I have to tell you, I know how it feels like, but I need to tell you the truth. Your heart is failing so fast that you need a heart transplant.
It's sad. It is, because you like have these ideas in your head on how your life is supposed to be. When you realize that those ideas that you have aren't probably ever going to come true, it's disheartening. It's kind of like, how did I get to this point? Like, how did I put myself in the position where it's like, I'm never going to be able to do these things I always wanted to do? I just remember sitting on my bed and crying to my mom and telling her that I didn't want to do it anymore, and that I was fed up with being in the hospital, and that I was frustrated that I still didn't have a heart, and I just wanted to go home.
Every day I'll pray, please God, let it be today that Bianca will get a heart. Please help us. No parent should go through this.
remember being so anxious, and then the morning finally came. I was like, this is actually real. Like, oh my gosh, I'm actually getting a heart. We went in this room and there was a bunch of like oxygen tanks and just all this medical equipment. And I just remember the last thing I said was, you guys have a lot of machines. And the next thing I woke up. And after that moment, I was like, I just felt so much better.
So after 3 hours, I went there and I saw Bianca. She had oh my gosh, Bianca was glowing. I'm like, wow, is this my daughter? Her face was so bright.
And this is the scar.
We're walking on the thin line in life. You might have it today and tomorrow it disappears.
If we continue giving medicine the opportunity through any kind of support, it will help so many families. Medicine today has advanced because of research. And research plays a huge part in medicine. Most programs that actually have advanced medicine is through public generosity. And I would sincerely pledge, if I had the money, I would give so much on behalf of my daughter, because she has benefited from other people's donations.
What we're doing, raising money, is critical to help funding for research and programs that will help our cause.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop that there and stop the share there. And that's the reason why I wanted us to look at this, because of what we just heard them say right there. The part of, because this is a very interesting story, amazing to listen to. Most of what it is that you had said, that went on there, you had kind of told us, but I wanted to just get to the part where we see your parents, what your dad said, and what the, first of all, I did not realize till I saw this, how is this doctor that actually did the surgery? The lady?
No, so Dr. Denise Sorrentino, she was my cardiologist at the Iowa Heart Center. And she, along with her colleagues, referred me to Abbott Northwestern here in Minneapolis.
Okay, okay. And so do you actually, this is, I guess that's the American Heart Association. I saw that when you're sitting there, we had a little red pin. Is that the pin for the American Heart Association?
Yeah, so it's for Go Red for Women. So the past 5 years, I've been able to be involved and be the survivor story for American Heart Association and Go Red for Women. Over the past 4 to 5 years, I've raised over $3.5 million in research funds for people that have congenital heart disease, and just research in general for heart failure and heart failure patients.
It's a thing we sometimes don't think about. We are there at the funeral, crying and doing it, but you see, and then donating a whole chunk for the food to be served, for the drinks to be done and everything. But you're not thinking that maybe if you get some of this part, you could preempt this early deaths you're seeing right here. And the only way this, she said it already, I'm just repeating what she said, repeating what all of us know, but it bears being repeated. It bears us hearing it again, that it's research that makes these kinds of things possible. And research isn't cheap. It doesn't just happen on its own.
Yeah.
They have to test this, test that, buy this kind of equipment. I have raised funds for Alzheimer's because my mom, that's what she passed away from. And so I have that motivation too. For now, there isn't a cure. If you're diagnosed with it, just that's what's going to be. They can manage the symptoms, manage the everything, but you just sit there and just know you're going to get progressively worse.
Yeah. And
that's the reason why we call on people to donate to this research. In this case, for the heart research, because those studies need to be done. And all of those things need financing. So if somebody wants to donate to the American Heart Association, is it as simple as just go Google the thing and donate away, or how does it work?
Yeah, so if you go to AmericanHeartAssociation.org, there should be a link at the top that says donate, and there's different ways you can donate. So within American Heart Association, there's Go Red for Women, which is specifically for women. Typically, women are misdiagnosed. There have been a lot of women in the past, and even now, that have gone to the doctor thinking that they are having a heart attack, thinking that they're having a stroke, and a lot of doctors will write it off as anxiety. So a lot of their research goes into educating women on heart disease and heart failure and things that you can do. There's different areas within American Heart Association that you can donate to specifically if it speaks to you. Otherwise, you can just donate to them just because you're wanting, to help with research.
Just advanced research.
Mm-hmm.
That you can go look. So the one for women, since we're both women here, and I'm thinking when I hear women, I tend to go, so go red for women. Okay, yep. I'm already here, red.
Yep, exactly. Yep,
go red for women. Is there a specific day, like the heart, like, you know, like all of that Alzheimer's day, there's so and so day.
Yeah.
Day in the year that is dedicated to heart issues?
So there is, February is Heart Month. So throughout February, American Heart Association will do different walks for heart health. They'll have different panels. They'll show different ways that you can get active and live a heart healthy life. And that's something that I celebrate every year and get involved in.
Let us know over here when February comes out. I'm not saying you should wait till February. You who are listening or watching this, I'm not saying wait till February to donate. Yeah. Go ahead and do what you need to do in your own local area there, wherever it is that you're doing this. But come February, please say, Auntie, remember you said you're going to do something in February. Come right back on and let's try to do some kind of a drive and do more sensitization, raising awareness, and then try to raise a penny, one more penny, one more cent, one more dime is something. So that's something that we at Vosaworld Radio here, the Musings show, would be glad to do come February or just ahead of February. And something else that shared, I don't think I still have it here with me. I might be able to find it. It may mean that I'll have to look maybe here if I can. You know, oh, why did I go get rid of WhatsApp before I started this? Now I may not be able to find it real quick, but I think he sent, here it is. Do you see this? Do you see that there, or is it showing?
Yeah.
Next month, this one features Bianca, who received a new heart. We're so happy to have the real life Bianca Ebako with us here on Mid Morning. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
It's like seeing yourself on a giant billboard.
So there it is. You're there on this giant billboard. Where was that? Was that in Minnesota?
Yeah, it was in Minnesota. That was a couple of years ago now. I think it was about a year after I got a heart transplant. They asked me to do a campaign for them. So I was on several billboards, and then I was also on the American Heart Association's website as their survivor story as well.
Awesome. You see, that's the silver lining to any cloud. This part, you're going through all of that difficulty has served the purpose. There's nothing aside. I keep telling people that you wasting your suffering. You've already gone through a traumatic experience, gone through something, and then almost like nothing. You can act or behave in a way or make a choice that makes it you just sit there. It's just all miserable and all sad and all no saving grace, no silver lining. Or you can do what Bianca has done there. There she is on a billboard. It will take some. I don't know. I'm thinking. I guess I'm showing my age with my own models. Naomi Campbell. I'm going that far back to be on a billboard for real, or somebody who is doing some major thing in the fashion industry or the music industry. And who would have thought about it? You get on a big billboard for a heart issue, for a heart thing. It is a positive way, positive spin to all that you went through sitting there in the hospital. And I noticed that your parents mentioned an older sibling of yours. That would have been traumatic too. And I know even if you didn't say so, psychologically in your head, you're thinking, how it would cross your mind.
Yeah.
And so I'm just, my heart goes out to you to know what it is, how you process that part of things. And even for them, I would be thinking, oh Lord, not again. Oh Lord, no. So yeah, you're going to say something about it?
Oh, I was just going to say my parents are the strongest people I've ever met in my entire life. And I like to say I've lived multiple lives because I have, and they're tough cookies.
Right. And they say what doesn't finish you off only makes you stronger. So
Mhm.
I guess they go in strength and everything. And there that you cannot avoid factoring in that support.
Mhm.
Support makes a difference. You see somebody there in a hospital that nobody comes to visit, that nobody seems to care about. They're not going to have the same hope, the same outlook as somebody who's there, who knows somebody cares about them, that it
Mhm.
matters to them that you survive, as
Right.
opposed to I'm going to survive and then what? What's that miserable rotten life I'm going back to? You're like, why bother? It works the same way everywhere. Even those of us who, in my own little setting, the kid who knows that their parents are going to say, what kind of grade is that you brought here? No, we can't have that. They work harder. They are more motivated to work harder because somebody is checking, somebody is asking, and somebody cares. It's
Yeah.
been such a wonderful thing talking to you that I have learned a lot just listening to you. And I cannot commend you enough for being just the brave person that you are. Commend your parents enough for being there for you and supporting you. And of course, hats off to the entire medical team, the ones from the urgent care to the ER to the surgeon himself and the physiologist, the whole 9 yards.
Mm-hmm.
We doff our hats. We've gone through COVID and they went through a lot with
Right.
yes. And so we commend them for the work they do. Sometimes we'll say, oh, you're suing this one and suing that one. Yeah, every profession has its not so good people, but the vast majority really work their tails off to keep us healthy, alive, and productive. So what's going to be your final word? What else? What do you have to say? What would you like to share? Anything else?
Yeah. I guess this is going to be more of a long-winded sentence, but so after I had a transplant, I actually went back to school. I was going to go the MD route for cardiology, but I actually ended up going the PA route. So physician's assistant for advanced heart failure, with especially an advanced heart failure. And during that time through school, going through that, since I had already experienced it myself, and I at that time I was mentoring other patients that were waiting for heart transplants at the hospital that I received mine at. I realized that being in the medical field in that capacity wasn't for me. I loved doing things like this, speaking to people about it and being on billboards and being on the news and talking about my story, that I felt impelled to go and do medicine like my parents. And then I realized that it wasn't really for me, and that just because I had a heart transplant and that I was so knowledgeable on the medical side of things as well, doesn't mean that I still can't do what I'm doing now and also have that knowledge. I don't necessarily need to practice medicine to still be advanced in knowing about medicine. So all in all, I would say is just honestly live your life the way you feel best fit for you and understand that tomorrow is never promised. And I always lived by that quote, but I never really understood it until I was given a timeline on my life. And whatever you're doing or whatever you say or whatever actions you take, like stand on it 10 toes down. Like, no, be so involved in what you're doing and wholeheartedly that you have no regrets. If you die tomorrow, what are people going to say at your funeral about you? You know, I'd rather have someone say at my funeral that I was so passionate about what I did than, oh, this person, you know, they kind of did this, or, you know, I don't really know what they did, you know. So just be very wholehearted in what you do and have no regrets with what you do in your life.
You sound like you're 80.
I like I said, I've lived multiple lives, so I understand how precious life it is.
The average 20-something-year-old you talk, they're like, oh, they're like, oh, not that you shouldn't do that bit too. That's part of who you are. That's part of enjoying life. But then to live purposefully, to live intentionally, to live with a sense of to be on a mission while you're
Yeah.
here, because that's what you really are.
Mhm.
You are on a mission. You have something to do, something to fulfill, and
Mhm.
you never know when this will be last day, last breath. Make it count. Make it
Exactly.
count. And so usually I'm listening to you and what you're saying is right on point, but usually that comes out of the mouth of somebody who's at least 50.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at you there saying just that. And then the courage to say, okay, I thought I'd go do this. That is supposed to be right up my alley because I've had the experience. And then
Mhm.
say, not for me. Because you
Mhm.
don't know how many people are living their lives being a mediocre something as opposed to excelling at something else that they ought to be doing. When you
Mhm.
see them in the element. And what you've done then now, tell somebody, like you said, that, hey, I can still do this. I can still be a teacher who knows how to talk about an experience that they went through. I can still be this person, do my own profession, what my heart tells me to go do. And it doesn't change the fact that I have that first-hand knowledge of
Yeah.
this thing because I am the person. I can speak to it because I've had the
Mhm.
experience. So I can go out of my 9 to 5 job that I'm doing and go speak on Saturday or Sunday or during the vacation thing. I don't have to go be in the thing itself to do that. So that, I'm sure somebody has listened to that and said, yeah, maybe really that may free somebody who's been thinking, oh, I'm a cancer survivor, need to go work in the lab, need to go work in so and so place, need to go be, not necessarily. In fact, what you do now for cancer patients is tell them, I can still keep doing my life as I thought, as I envisioned it, has not ended. I can go right on being this, but I can speak to the matter whenever I'm called on. I can even go ahead and organize and do exactly what you're doing, but still keep my dreams.
I think a lot of people don't realize that, and you mentioned about, you know, like having a mediocre life or being in a mediocre career that you aren't necessarily obsessed with or love, and everything that you want is on the other side of fear. And I feel like fear fuels people every single day. You don't want to leave that job because you're afraid of X, Y, and Z. You don't want to go on that date because you're afraid of disappointment, or you're afraid of, you know, everything that you want and what you want to possess and have and experience is on the other side of fear. So if you can fully understand that and get on the other side of it, your life is yours.
Right? Overcome this sometimes there's a good dose, a healthy measure of fear that can say, okay, so you proceed with caution. But if you let it cripple you, you will just never make anything out of it. You just sit down there and just never do. If thank God everybody doesn't even reason like that, because everything that has been invented, it wasn't there before.
Exactly.
Somebody said, I'm going to go try, I may fail. And some people fail, they actually mock them. In fact, back in the day, I don't know which of the scientists who dared say that the world wasn't flat. I think he got even killed for how dare you. Who were burned at the stake, executed for being heretics because they were saying things but they dared. And that's how come we are here now, because people have been courageous enough to go for it, to go for their dreams, and the world is a far better place for it. So thank you so much, Bianca. If you don't have any other closing word, then we'll go ahead and end. And I'm glad you made the time to come sit here. You would, trust me, this would be an inspiration, not only for people who had struggled with heart disease, for anything, any challenge that anybody is facing, to see that somebody can go through it and be back, bounce right back, and be here like you are here. I'm glad I got the chance to talk to you. You are an amazing human being, amazing lady, and just keep going. When February comes, holler right back, and let's go ahead and do whatever you need, that it is that you need to do. And I wish you only the very best with whatever you choose, whatever you see fit to go ahead and do.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. So goodbye, everybody. We'll be seeing you in the next show. Take care. Remember to go out there like Bianca and be the best authentic you that you could possibly be. Bye now.